All right, we're going to get started. Thank you everyone for being here today. We are pleased to be able to present this information to you and hopefully offer some information that will be useful to you, and then also get some feedback from our community about our partnerships with the village, the police, and the fire, and the measures that we have in place in our school district. We're going to start with introductions so that you know the panel that's in front of you. Obviously, we have name tags, but we all play a little bit different role here in the school district and the village. So I'm going to ask that we just go starting from Rick all the way through. We'll make introductions, and then we'll get started with our presentation.
I'm Rick Papula, Director of Buildings and Grounds for the school district.
Hi, I'm Lori Pilster, Director of Business Services for District 58.
I'm Marcia Giesler, Assistant to the Fire Chief for the Downers Grove Fire Department.
And I am Jim Jackson, the Fire Chief.
And I'm Carrie Kremascoli. I'm the Superintendent of Downers Grove, District 58.
Hi, I'm Bob Porter, Chief of Police.
Hi, I'm Bill Budds, Deputy Chief of Police.
Hi, I'm Mike Wilson, Lieutenant of the Police Department.
Hello, Mary Pratt, Emergency Management Coordinator at the Village.
Good evening, I'm Matt Derbala. I'm the principal at O'Neill Middle School.
Good evening, I'm Todd McDaniel, the principal at Henry Puffer School.
Hello, I'm Jane Uzentis, Assistant Superintendent for Personnel.
And good evening, I'm Scott Meach, the Director of Technology.
And in the back row?
Hi, I'm Dave Fieldman. I'm the village manager. Also with us tonight are some elected officials from the village council. Commissioner Bob Barnett is here. Commissioner Jeff Newstead is here. And Commissioner Becky Rankin is here as well.
I'm Jim Poppernick, the controller for the district.
Jenny Waldorf, Communications Coordinator for the district.
And I will also introduce a couple of our board members who are joining us this evening. Roberta Deal is there in the back. Sally Lupescu is also back here. And John Cooper is with us as well. Did we miss anyone? We also have in the audience with us today several of our principals and many other distinguished guests. So we are pleased to have you here today. What we're going to try to do is give you an overview of all the different measures, safety and security measures that we have in place in the school district and the partnerships that we have with our community. We are going to go through a couple of the rules and regulations. Sometimes people don't have that background understanding of all that school districts are required to be doing to keep our students safe. So we're going to go through a whole lot of information. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what is happening in District 58 now, what's been going on for a long time as far as our safety measures, and then some of the current considerations that we have been looking at this year in particular for improvements and upgrades of our school facilities. I am going to ask that you save your questions for the end because we do have so much information to go through, but I promise we will have an opportunity at the end for questions and for feedback. And we also, many of the panel members have indicated that they would stick around and answer any other questions that you might have, and certainly for reporters, if you're here and you'd like to ask some more specific questions, we would invite you to save those to the end as well. We do have a feedback sheet you might have received when you walked in. It's a green sheet like this, and that is just our way of gathering some feedback from you. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable stepping up to the microphone. We still do want to hear from you, so we would invite you to provide us some feedback here about the presentation as well as any other feedback you might have. And we also provided the PowerPoint presentation, and we are recording this evening, and so we will be linking tonight's presentation up to the district website so that if you want to review it later or you have some neighbors or friends who might want to look at that later, that will be there and available. So without further ado, I reviewed a little bit about our purpose for today. We are going to jump right into some of the safety and security requirements that we have as a district. And Lori is going to talk to us about that.
Thanks, Carrie. So District 58's safety plans are comprised of some of the practices and procedures that we feel are in the best interest of our students and our staff to keep them safe. But as Carrie had mentioned, we also have a lot of mandates that are put on us from the federal government, the state, our local county government as well. So we're going to kind of run through those, and we're going to start tonight with our federal mandates. So we're going to begin with No Child Left Behind, and I'm sure everybody has heard of No Child Left Behind. It's been around for about a decade or so. Most people, when they hear about NCLB, they really think about those academic requirements that are built in there, but there is also a safety component built in there. And the purpose of that is to ensure a safe and orderly school by implementing programs that protect students and teachers, encourage discipline and personal responsibility, and also combat illegal drugs. So with that purpose in mind, schools need to anticipate the potential for violence in schools. There's reporting statistics that need to be done that districts need to provide. And they also need to establish a plan for keeping schools safe and drug-free. That plan must include security procedures, appropriate and effective discipline policies, some prevention activities, codes of conduct for students, and then it requires schools to put together a crisis management plan for responding to violent or traumatic incidences on school ground. This is what we call our emergency management plan, and you're going to hear a lot about this plan as we kind of go through all of our presentation tonight. It's a pretty important document for us. So that's kind of the federal level. So next we're going to move on to the state, and there's no shortage of legislation out there that deals with student safety in some way, shape, or form. So, you know, rather than go through it all, we chose the Illinois School Safety Drill Act because we feel that's a pretty important one. So the purpose of that is to establish our minimum and the standards for the drills that we need to conduct on an annual basis. Also within the School Safety Drill Act is the mandate to review our emergency management plans on an annual basis. So the feds say that we need to establish the plan, and then the state says that we need to review that plan every year. Also, the Illinois School Safety Drill applies to all school districts, whether you're a public district or a private school district. It establishes a minimum number and type of drills that we have to conduct. And then it also talks about all of those reporting requirements that we need to do to say that we are complying with this act, that we have performed our drills and we've reviewed our emergency management plan. So the types of drills that we have, there are 4 types of drills that the schools conduct, and you're probably familiar with these. We have our evacuation drills. These are for fire or suspicious item. Anytime that the conditions outside of a school are safer than the conditions inside of a school, we would perform an evacuation drill. We have to have 3 evacuation drills per year, and one of those drills has to be with participation from our local fire department. We conduct 1 bus evacuation drill per year. We do a law enforcement drill. This is also known as a lockdown drill, sometimes also as a reverse evacuation. This is basically when the conditions inside of a school or specifically a classroom are safer than those outside. A lot of people think of that for intruders in the building, but it really can be about any situation. There could be something happening 2 blocks away from the school that really make it a good idea to keep kids in place and everybody just stays put inside their building. We do have to conduct 1 law enforcement drill a year, and that has to be with the participation of our local police department. And then finally, we have our severe weather drills, the tornado drills, and we conduct one severe weather drill per year. Also, along with the school safety drill, we have those compliance reports that we need to do, that we need to show that we have reviewed our plan and we have documented that we've reviewed that. And also we have the requirement for the fire marshal. We also have to certify to the fire marshal that we have reviewed our plans and we have conducted all of the drills that we are required to conduct. You know, it's important to note that, you know, as we talk about our emergency management plan, there's just a couple things I'd like to mention. It's not a static plan. We do review it annually. We do make changes to it. We try to learn from what's going on around us to make improvements to our plan. Just this morning, Dr. Cremascoli and I attended a presentation on school violence. Next week, several members from the district, along with some members of the police department, will go to a workshop regarding lockdown procedures. So things change and things evolve, and that plan changes with them. The other thing I'd like to mention about the emergency management plan is that it is a confidential document. And that's for good reason, and that helps keep our students and our staff safe. So that is the Illinois state part of it, and Rick will now talk about the Health Life Safety Act.
Well, back in 1963, a new building code in the state of Illinois went into effect for schools, for public schools. And I think that was probably the first uniform code for schools throughout the state. The reason for this code is to preserve the health, safety, and welfare of all the pupils and the teachers and all other occupants of these buildings. The reason that this came about was very tragic. 5 years prior, in 1958, there was a parochial school fire in Chicago that took more than 90 lives. That's what prompted the Illinois legislature to pass the Life Safety Act. There are some important parts to this act, and the first one includes school inspections. There are annual inspections required of all public schools by two agencies. One is the regional superintendent, and they come through and inspect every room in our schools every autumn to make sure that they're up to standards. And so does the fire department. Under the auspices of the state fire marshal, the fire department makes an inspection of every one of our schools and writes up a report and looks at our systems and tests them. Also, every 10 years, a licensed architect must inspect our schools. And this is a comprehensive inspection using the code book that's active for the schools, because schools, when they're built in different time periods, are grandfathered under different codes. The code from 1963 lasted about 30 years. The next code lasted less than 10, and then there was a revision to the BOCA code, and then to the international code, which all schools are under now. The architect would inspect all systems, and these codes keep changing. So, for instance, backflow preventers are now required on all water lines, and years ago that wasn't required. So every 10 years, with the updated codes, the architects inspect our schools and write up reports that we have to abide by. Who's next?
Oh, this is still us? Sorry. Still me. So that was an overview of kind of the federal, the state, and our local mandates and different things that we need to comply with regarding student safety, staff safety, and building security. Now we're going to take a look at, and you can see they're on your handouts or on there, these are some of the measures that we do that are district-wide measures. And the first one on that list is the emergency management plan. And this is not meant to be an all-inclusive list. This is just some of the ones that we feel are important. We have all of our exterior doors are locked throughout the school day. And if you're parents or volunteers or visitors to our buildings, there are sign-in and sign-out procedures. We also have our emergency procedure flip chart, which is this document right here. This is in all of our classrooms, and this is kind of just a down and dirty procedural document for conducting some of those drills that we reviewed earlier. And this is very helpful if there's a sub in the class. So these are in all of our classrooms. And then continuing on, we have our fingerprint-based criminal background checks for all new employees. And we have stickers attached to all of our phones with instructions on how to dial 911, how to get to poison control if you need to do that. We have automated external defibrillators in every school building. And central office, our administrative building, has copies of all class lists, bus lists, student contact information, all in that building, each in a binder for their individual schools. So if something were to happen at the school level and we needed that information, we have it right there. We don't have to get to the school and get in there. And then finally, we have our automated parent notification system. And now I think we are moving on to our Village of Downers Grove and the Police Department.
Can you start, Mike? Before I turn it over to Lieutenant Wilson, I just want to make a couple introduction comments. I've been with the village for my 27th year with the police department, and I can tell you as parents that the relationship that we have with the village and the police department, we take a team approach to safety, and we have no greater priority than the safety of our children. And I want to commend all of you for coming out tonight to attend this very important event. Sandy Hook has really had an impact on all of us in law enforcement, and I can tell you your police department trains very hard. A lot of our patrols are directed toward the schools, and we take children's safety very, very important. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to Lieutenant Willison, who works almost every day with the school officials regarding the safety of your children. So Mike, if you want to cover some of the points.
Okay. I got involved with the schools a while ago. I was a police counselor at North High, I was a dare officer, and I really have a passion for working with young people in the schools and with the school district. It's been a great partnership, and I really got involved with this end of it probably a little over 5 years ago, and that's how I got involved with this. So since that time, we've been ahead of the ballgame as far as school safety goes and stuff. So probably about 5 years ago, officers started walking through the schools, all the schools, myself included, going through every school, looking and checking to see what would be the best procedure, the best route to take during a lockdown procedure if it had to happen, or an evacuation, if something like that. They were just discussing safety issues at all. We have floor plans. We maintain all the floor plans and keys, master keys to all the school buildings in the district. We conduct all the lockdown drills at all the schools. This helps a lot in two ways, because it does provide training for the staff. And that was a step-by-step procedure. We started off just talking about it with the staff and faculty, then we just did the staff and faculty, then we included the students. So it was a long process that took a long time to get through, but we made it through there. And it helps our officers also, because when we do conduct the lockdown drills, I have to bring a lot of officers with me. So they not only see the process, but they get familiar with all the buildings too, and where they need to go and how they're set up. Having said that, we also use the schools for training. We use our schools for rapid deployment training, building searches, and that again allows all the officers to get into the buildings in case of an emergency that they're familiar with and know where to go. I was also involved with this safety committee review, which reviews the emergency plan annually, and we make revisions and we go over it every year when necessary. We have also a public education unit in our police department, and we have 2 officers that go out and they present a variety of programs to kids K through 6. They have bullying, stranger danger, home alone programs that they go out and help educate the youth also. Lastly, I'll talk about the emergency management. We use a unified command system, which means we all, basically like here, we get together in case of an emergency. The fire department, the school district, the police department, public works, we would all get together and have a unified command, and that way we can communicate with each other, know what everyone's doing, and get things done in an efficient manner. That's pretty much what I would say.
Good evening, everyone. I can echo the same thing that Chief Porter said about the safety of your children is paramount and it's top priority for us. In the fire department, we train regularly on the school drills. So our public education officer, Marcia, she goes out with the firefighters and we train on this along with the school officials. In fact, we train in September and October. Actually, we witness the September and October drills. And then we provide feedback to the building principals if we see something that needs to be changed or altered, or good things that happen as well. We also participate in the district's District 58 Safety Committee. Fire department as well as the police department, we also have floor plans and keys to get into all the buildings in the different areas. And then the fire department provides a comprehensive safety and injury prevention plan for the children with the take-home information to the parents. It's not uncommon to see a firefighter walk through the hallways through the various programs that we offer and provide to the school children. And lastly, like the officer said, we do also participate in the emergency management, the unified command system. We work well together. Police, fire, public works, and the school officials, we come together during an incident to make sure that we have the accurate information so we make strategic decisions.
Good evening. Besides the police and fire, there are other village departments that also work closely with the district. they, our Public Works Department and few personnel within that department look at the traffic patterns and work with the district staff to evaluate the traffic plans around the schools and make adjustments where needed. The village does employ the crossing guards, but we work with the schools to see where crossing guards are needed, where those, where the traffic patterns are, where sometimes they change over time. So we look at that annually. Also, there is the Safe Routes to School Grants Program that is administered by the Department of Transportation, but it's a program that improves safety around the schools. And so we look to it as that as an avenue to see if we can, get some dollars to improve the safety at the school locations. And then additionally, if some items come up on the Parking and Traffic Commission meetings that are involved with the school or the school areas around the school, members from the district attend those meetings. So they have input and they can be involved in anything that goes on around the schools and the school properties.
I think it's important to note that we've talked a lot about physical and environmental issues, but I think it's very good point to bring up that we're bringing up internet safety right away as well in the presentation. We take this very seriously, and as Lori mentioned, that we annually look at all of our different policies, so do we do with internet safety. As things change rapidly with technology, we're making sure that we're doing everything we can to keep kids safe as they're learning online. So within the presentation, you'll see that we linked out to our district policies, which is including 6,111, which is published in your schools of 58, and that gets into the students and teacher policies regarding acceptable use of technology. We annually have to comply with the Children's Internet Protection Act, and I've linked out to that for more information. It's a very important act, basically, that we make sure we're following closely because it deals with information as far as student usernames, et cetera, on the internet. And once again, we also linked out to our staff technology policy, which is 4013. To be transparent, we have something called Sonic Wall, which is our internet filter. So all of the access to the internet is filtered with this device that looks for different keywords, et cetera, to keep us safe from inappropriate information. And then also last year, one of the things that we found is we wanted to improve our district usernames, as I mentioned, as part of our looking at the Children's Internet Protection Act. So this year we implemented a district-wide new username scheme, which includes students will have the letters DG and then a unique ID number for any of their online access and folder access on the network. And then further, we also have curriculum all the way from K through 8, and we linked out to our 8th grade curriculum, which is in our SNAP classes, our 7th grade connection classes, and then we have different pieces throughout the K through 6 building in the LRC with the teachers. And we're continuing to take a look at that, and we're starting, or we're continuing with a subcommittee that's going to look closer at how we can implement those lessons more effectively. So this is, I'm really excited. I just want to add that this is up front in the presentation, and this is how important we take this topic.
In the area of staff's training, the district has a number of trainings for staff. We train our various groups in AED use, which is defibrillator, CPR, basic first aid, use of the EpiPen, diabetes management and care. And again, that's our certified staff, custodians, clerical staff, instructional assistants, and all the administrators as well. We review the emergency procedures flip chart, which Lori had showed, each year with our staff to go through that Cliff Notes version of each section for just those reminders and the additional training for what do you do for fire, severe weather, medical emergency, lockdown, soft lockdown, bomb threat, what if there's a missing student, weapon found, the federal risk indicators, earthquake, and then student release procedures are all contained in that flip chart. We review the district and also the building allergy management plan with more specialized training at each building, student-specific, obviously, to make sure that we have those safety procedures in place for individual student needs. All of our administrators are trained in nonviolent crisis intervention strategies, and that's really those de-escalation strategies to calm a situation, to prevent a violent situation from occurring.
And then in every building, we have a team of teachers trained in nonviolent crisis intervention as well. And then finally, at each of our schools, we have a crisis team that really takes a more in-depth view in training for the with the emergency management plan.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the building level things that we do, and you'll see on this list, many of these things are visible to the public, things that you see every day, and then there are things that we do internally to make sure that your children are safe. I want to point out that all of the things on this list are things that we've done at every school in the district, and we've done these things for years. None of this is really new information. We've already gone over that we have signage directing you to the main office. We have sign-in procedures at each school. They're all a little different, but each school has a sign-in procedure and some type of identification system for visitors in the building. All of our schools have some sort of communication system between staff, custodians, administration, all of those people so that we can be in contact at all times. Every building has what we call an emergency bag. That's one bag that has all of the pertinent information that you need, class lists, student names, phone numbers, all that information that we can just grab and take with us if we have some type of a situation where we need to leave the building. All of our teachers have a specific procedure regarding taking attendance under all different types of situations, whether it's an internal lockdown type situation or it's an external leave the building fire drill, some type of situation like that. We also have a handout that we give to all of our substitute teachers when they're new to the building that outlines the procedures for them, as well as we have those flip charts in the classroom. Each teacher also has an emergency folder in their room with pertinent information for a substitute. We go over all of our emergency procedures with staff at the beginning of the year, and then depending on specific situations, we'll review those at different times throughout the year. We train all of our support staff and all of our lunch supervisors at the elementary level. We use paid volunteers to come in and do our lunch duties. And then we've already talked about the drills that we do during the year. Those are really important, not only for kids, but also for staff. It's also really good for us to work with those agencies from the village to get comfortable. They know our buildings, we know them, we can put faces and names together if we ever need that situation. And then they really do give us great feedback. I can only speak at the middle school level, but we will have the firemen block off a specific exit during a drill just to see how the kids are going to react. They time us during all of our drills, so we know how long it takes us to get out of our building. They give us very specific feedback on our attendance procedures. I know this year when we did it at O'Neill, they took a kid and they timed how long it took us to figure out we were missing a student that didn't make it out of the building. So those are really important things that we do. It helps the kids feel comfortable and know what to do in a situation, as well as the staff, the administration, everybody involved, that we're very comfortable. If a situation arises, we know what we need to do.
In addition to what Mr. DeBala covered, I'll cover some more of the measures that we implement in the buildings on a daily basis. At the beginning of each school year, our school nurses compile a list and or update the list with regards to health alerts for classroom teachers. It seems like each year we have more and more health issues coming into the building with children, and these health alerts let the staff know warning signs to look for, symptoms that children may exhibit if they were going to be in trouble in a medical situation. When we have children on the playgrounds, whether it be with playground supervisors at recess time or PE classes that go outside, the PE teachers and supervisors do have first aid packs that they can take out with them, along with, they have a two-way radio with them so they can communicate with the office should there be a need to move those children either back into the building or keep them out of the building. On select days during the year when there's a special event where large crowds are coming into the building, there's oftentimes coordination of volunteers to help with check-in and check-out procedures for all of the visitors coming into the building and out in mass, if you will, like a VIP day or classroom parties and such. Field trip procedures, when teachers leave the building property with children, they take with them emergency information, contact information for each child so they can contact parents. They'll obviously contact the school also. And they also take with any needed medications for children and make sure that those are dispensed at the direction of the doctor. And then the office staff also does have on hold a list of all the parent chaperone, the chaperone volunteers that went with on the trip, so we know who's with the children. Though we share a lot of our support staff in terms of nurses, social workers, counselors, and psychologists, they are available to all the schools 5 days a week. If there's something that occurs in the building, we'll oftentimes have a social worker, a psychologist, or a counselor travel over to a building in need from their assigned buildings. The final three items kind of tie into the increased emphasis the district's had over the past several years on social emotional learning. There are initiatives for bullying prevention and intervention. A lot of classrooms do hold morning meetings, and we have tailored assemblies that address bullying and bullying prevention. Playground safety measures are taken. A lot of the schools conduct recess rodeos where they talk about safety on the equipment and safety of equipment use, but also they work with the children in developing some conflict resolution skills. When those arguments arise and tempers start to heat, we talk with the children and train them on how you can address that and resolve your conflicts amongst each other. And then the social emotional learning initiatives, the junior highs use an evidence-based program called School Families, and the elementary schools, many of them use a program called Second Step, and there are other evidence-based programs that are in place in addition to those two.
So let me pause here just for a second and acknowledge that was a lot of information that we just went over for you all. Hopefully it touched upon some of the information that you were hoping to hear about this evening. Being new to the district and being new to the community, I have to commend all that our district has had in place and the partnership that we have with the village in so many of these different ways. I have been part of many districts and many schools, all of whom are responsible for undertaking many of these same measures. And it is our district, in my experience, that has been more vigilant than any other school that I have ever been part of in making sure that not only do we have these list of responsibilities, but we actually do review them each and every year. Each of our school principals with their staff take a close look at all of these plans and procedures. We do work very closely with our police and our fire departments. And our social emotional learning initiative is something that really is a core belief within our district, and we hold that value very high. It's obviously part of our community schools efforts, but it really is important to me to acknowledge the hard work of everyone that's up here, as well as all of our staff within our schools, because you know, following Sandy Hook, we heard a lot, quite frankly, I heard a lot from our community about the fact that our front doors weren't open. I mean, our front doors were unlocked. And while that is an easy thing to point to from a community member or a parent's perspective, and certainly something that we've taken steps to remedy since then, that is one small measure of safety for our students and for our schools. I think as a district, we have for a long time been extra vigilant in so many of these other ways, because we recognize that locking a front door in and of itself is not going to keep our students safe. It is important that we're teaching our students how to advocate for themselves, how to watch out for their neighbors, how to be connected to a community and be part of a community, and that they are an important part of a community that is responsible for caring for each other and making sure that we're all safe. In just about every school throughout our nation, you will see staff members carrying around badges like this. It's pretty common. You will have sign-in and sign-out procedures, and you will have emergency management plans in place. It is one of the first things that we did at the start of the school year was review all of those plans. The emergency management plans that we have in place, we actually sat as a team and looked through each and every element of that plan, finalized those plans, and then once we made any of those revisions, we got those out to the schools. The principals actually reviewed those with their staff at the first meeting of the school year so that everyone is aware of any changes that need to happen. So while we continue to make upgrades in our schools, and it, as Lori said, is important for us to continue to review and make those upgrades, I think it's just as important to acknowledge that so many of these measures have been in place for so long in our district. And we do believe very firmly that safety and security truly is everyone's responsibility. And so I hope that you'll see that throughout this presentation. So I have a couple other things that I want to touch upon, and maybe this is getting at some of the specific information that you hope to hear a little bit more about this evening as well. As Matt and Todd spoke of, we have the social emotional learning standards, and again, that is something that every district in the state of Illinois is responsible for addressing with their students. I would argue that as a district, we do an exceptional job of this. We have received recognition at the state level as well as at the national level for our programs supporting students' development socially and emotionally. And for us, this is really important. I touched upon it a little bit, but making sure that each and every one of our schools, our classrooms are really child-centered, safe, caring, nurturing environments for our students to learn and grow in is really important to us. We heard quite a bit about it today as Lori and I listened to the FBI agents training school personnel and police in threat analyses and in really looking for what evidence there might be out there that there may be a threat. And one of the things that they emphasized again and again is that more often than not, I think the statistic was 80 or 90% of the time when there is a significant threat, there is at least one other person who was aware of the threat and could have done something about it. So for us, we want to make sure that our students feel connected to their schools, feel connected to their classrooms, to their classmates, and to a caring adult in their school environments. It's really important that we encourage each other and we encourage our children to speak up when they're aware of a threat or a concern, when they recognize that maybe one of their peers is having a tough time. There are some of those signals that occur prior to, really way before any significant safety issue or threat arises. And if we can know about that as soon as possible, we can address those things and prevent many of the issues that are very scary for all of us to even contemplate. So we have in place the anti-bullying programs, and we also continuously encourage and teach our students about responsible decision-making and problem-solving. If you have children in our schools, you probably have heard our staff and our principals talk about this at times maybe ad nauseum, but it really is something that's very important to us. We do our morning meetings in our schools so that our students feel connected and there's that welcomed sense of coming to school. And while that seems sometimes from an outsider's perspective like a little bit of fluff, it's really critically important for each and every student to be welcomed into their classroom and to feel connected in that way. We also have, many of our schools have started a families approach where different grade level students are assigned to one staff member who is their mom or their dad at school, and they create a little family that they follow and they partner with all the way through their elementary school career. And again, that's just another important way in which we connect with our students. So there are a ton of things that we're doing in terms of social emotional learning and supporting our students, and I would argue this is one of the most important ways that we can all work together to keep our students safe and to prevent much of the violence that's so feared, that we're so afraid of and that we fear might happen here. So I'll get off my soapbox and move on to the next slide, which is some of the things that are under consideration at this point in time in the district. And if you've been to board meetings recently or if you've read any of my communications, you've probably already heard much of this. But we have, throughout this year and really beginning last year, taken a close look at our facilities. That examination yielded all sorts of information about some of the upgrades that were needed within our buildings. Some of those have focused on life safety measures, which include carpeting and tile replacements, asbestos, and even some asphalt needs, but also fire alarms. In addition to that, we've also looked at our security. And one of the things that's happened, obviously, since December, if you've come to visit any of our schools, is we've locked that front door of our school. We have for a really long time, secured all of our doors except the front door, feeling very much like we want to create that warm and welcoming environment for our parents and for our visitors as well as our students. In reassessing that more recently, we did decide to lock the front doors. Admittedly, it's a little cumbersome right now because we have a doorbell system that requires a human to actually come to the door, acknowledge the visitor, and welcome them into the office. So one of the first improvements that we're hoping to make, now having reviewed that decision of locking the front door, is installing some features at the front doors that will make that entrance a little bit easier for our families and for our visitors, but also, quite frankly, for our staff who are responsible not only for manning the front door, but for doing all the things that help our students throughout the school day and our staff throughout the school day. So we are looking at installing updated doorbell systems that will include cameras and remote locking features. Those cameras will have a direct feed to the police department. We are also looking at updating our burglar and security alarm systems, and we're also looking at the swipe systems within our schools. Many of our schools are still hard key locked. So if a teacher or staff member went out to the recess or playground area, they would need to have a key to get in, and we're looking at the possibility of a swipe system there. One of the other things that we're looking at is creating some sort of a second entry, a second door to gain access to students. So many times you'll see this if you enter a hospital maybe. In some schools locally you'll see where you can enter the school, but you are kind of forced into the office area before you would gain access to the students. And that's something that we're looking at as well. Many of our schools are older, and some of those structural improvements require a whole lot of work. And in other schools, it's a really easy fix for us to do. And so we're looking at how we can best accomplish some of those improvements. Meanwhile, we are continuing to work with our principals and our staff, as well as the police and fire departments, to make sure that all of the other security needs are in place and addressed. So having locked classroom doors, inspecting each of our exterior doors in the playgrounds, and those things that can cause safety hazards for us as well. We're also examining access to our school buildings beyond the school day. Many of our buildings are used what feels like sometimes 24/7 by our community, and it's a wonderful partnership that we have in that regard. But there are obviously some safety and security issues that go along with that as well. And so we're taking a close look at that and how we can ensure that everyone who needs access to our building has that access to our building, but that we also ensure and maintain that safety and security for our students. Let's see, was there anything there that I missed? It's a pretty exhaustive list. And then some of the other things that we are doing kind of concurrent to reviewing all of those considerations are listed there. And those include continually reviewing with the ROE, working with our police and fire departments. We are getting feedback from many of our staff members and our principals. Because each building is different, we need to know how the building operates and how it's used. We're hosting tonight's Safety and Security Forum to get some additional feedback from you all as our community. And then we're having a third party review our plans. Certainly the village and the police and fire department assist us with that, but in looking at some of the structural improvements, we need to work with our architect to really analyze whether or not we're addressing every need that exists within our building. So those are some of the things that we're examining at this point, and we are hoping to have our board consider and approve some of the life safety amendments on Monday evening's board meeting. At that time, that will allow us to begin planning timelines for some of the structural improvements that I just discussed. In some of them, especially the second threshold door, those will be part of a phase 2 for some of our buildings. And so we have to kind of get some of these things in place and then move forward with that phase 2. So what can you do? Being here tonight is an important first step. There is a ton of information, again, that we have shared with you. It's important to us that our community understand all that we as a school district do and all that the village does to help support the safety and security of our students throughout our community. As you visit our schools, it is important to us that you continue to be patient as you ring that front door and wait for a staff member to allow you to come in. But it's also important that you sign in, that you wear your visitor's badge. There are all sorts of procedures that are in place within our schools, and while sometimes they seem cumbersome, it's important that we all pay attention to them. It's also important to us that you work with your students, just as we do your own children, and encourage them to report incidents as they experience them. So if they're having a trouble at school or at home, if they know one of their peers is having trouble at school or at home, if they notice a suspicious incident in our community, all of those things and reporting those things, each of those reports is taken very seriously by the school district as well as by the police department. And as you probably have seen over the years, we really do investigate each and every one of those reports very carefully so that we can ensure, again, the safety of everyone throughout our community. So I appreciate your being here tonight. We do look forward to your feedback. Again, we have provided to you the green sheet as a means of providing feedback, but we also would invite any questions, comments, or feedback that you might have for us this evening that you'd like us to consider. We will do our best to answer those questions. And many of the panel members, really all of the panel members, will be here after we adjourn as well to answer any specific questions that you might have as well. So if you have a question or a comment or some feedback for us, we would invite you to come up to the podium. We have a microphone, and that will allow everyone to hear your voice, your comment, or your question. So.
Hi, first of all, thank you all for this. It's been really informative. I am a parent of one current student at El Sierra and 2 more coming up in the next 4 years. My question is about the unified command that both Lieutenant Wilson and James Jackson mentioned. My question is, if something happens, is there a quick way to know who's in charge of that command? Is it fire? Is it police? Is it district? Or do we have a bunch of people arguing over what we're going to do and then nothing happens?
I can address that. The village has an emergency operating plan. We're fortunate enough, we also have an emergency operating manager, which would be Mary Scalzetti. And it defines, depending on the type of incident, you actually have a department that is going to be in charge of that. Say, for example, God forbid we have a shooting at the high school. We would be the primary agency that would be responsible for that. But we would also have fire personnel present in our command center. We would have school personnel as well. And so we would be taking the lead on it. However, you'd have cross-communication throughout.
I would invite you, if you do have other questions or comments, to form a line over here. That way we'll know not to adjourn the meeting in anticipation of additional feedback. So.
Hi, my name is Fatima Antique. I am a future parent of a child that will be attending in August.
Great.
And my concerns, I have 2 questions. First question is about the unfortunate incident in Sandy Hook Elementary where the gentleman actually broke a window to get in. And they had the cameras, they also had, the buzz-in. So unfortunately, he was still able to get in. Is there something that you guys, I like the 2-door issue, but if he could break in, are you guys considering other steps?
The measures that we're considering right now are listed on that one slide. I don't know if you're making reference to maybe some glass that would be able to be broken through. And at this point, that's not under consideration for us. Again, it's important that we work together to keep our students safe, and I think the measures that we're putting in place are the prudent measures to be taking. At this time, we're not looking at unbreakable glass for a number of reasons, including the fire department needing to
get in, right?
Get in as well. So I don't know if there's other information regarding that you would want want
As
to
far
share.
as the breaking glass.
Breaking glass, yeah.
No, one of the things that we're concerned with as far as the glass is being able to gain access. I mean, yeah, we can get it in different ways, but a quick access for us is important.
And my second question is something that wasn't addressed today. It was about the Alabama incident where the gentleman took the child hostage and he almost kidnapped 2 children. Is there any steps considering like having 2 people on the bus besides just the bus driver?
Lori, I don't know if you want to address the busing situation.
Sure. You know, that's not something that we have discussed with the transportation company. I mean, it's certainly some conversations we can have is in regards to student safety on the bus as well. You know, they do have, I don't know how much it would help in that particular circumstance, but they do have a way to radio to their dispatchers. They have cell phones, they have radios. They also have GPS tracking devices on all of the buses that are live. I can actually go in there in my office and sign on and look and see where our buses are. So we have those kinds of things in place. We have not discussed additional staffing on all of our bus routes.
Would you guys be considering?
You know, I don't know. I guess I would have to have the conversation and see if, number one, it's a possibility. We have a very hard time, quite frankly, finding bus drivers. So I'd have to have the conversation and see what the practical resources that would be out there are.
Thank you.
I do think it's important as we consider all of these things to keep in mind the practicality and the likelihood that any of those measures would prevent one of those circumstances from occurring. Certainly very tragic incidents, both of those that you brought up.
My name's Richard Sumantti, and despite my youthful appearance, I've been a member of this community since 1962. And in one way or another, I've had connections with a number of people in this room. Hi, Mike. Mike and I worked together at Herrick Middle School. Not that I had any other business with it. I commend you for making this presentation tonight. Please do not take this as a criticism, but this is a presentation that probably should have been done in September. But due to Newtown, I'm sure the people who have come here tonight are here tonight because of Newtown. I would wonder how many of us would be here in September for this if Newtown hadn't taken place. Which brings me to the feeling that Newtown has changed our point of view in everything. Some of us who are parents, grandparents of students of 58, maybe our feelings are a little bit verging on panic. What if this is going to happen in Downers Grove? In my experience, I have seen the golden age of Downers Grove where my kids walk through places of bushes and trees by themselves without me fearing anything. But times have changed. The question that I have is, are we mentally, creatively planning for, as she brought up about Newtown and the bus driver being killed, the abnormal? Because that's what's going to happen. It's the abnormal situation. One of the places that I feel really needs a lot of different kind of thinking is the staff training. What are we doing in our schools with our professional and staff leaders in regard to training that is different than what we've been seeing here on the screens, because I have every bit of confidence in our uniformed first responders. I have every bit of confidence in our teachers, but I think our staff needs to be trained a little bit differently, and I think we need to take a look at that, and how can we creatively train our staff members to prepare for the abnormal. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. First of all, thank you for your comments and your ongoing support. But I also would like to address your question, and that is something that, in fact, we started talking about this year prior to the Newtown tragedy through our Safety and Security Committee. The ALICE procedure, which is something that is relatively new, but it does train staff a little bit differently in terms of lockdown procedures. And that is something, because it's so dramatically different than the way schools and police personnel have trained for so many years. It's something that takes a lot of consideration, and in fact, there's representatives from the police department and the school district that will be going to another training coming up to determine if that's a measure that we want to put in place in our schools. In short, it does do exactly what you're describing, which is train our staff and our personnel to think differently and creatively when they're in a situation that is unknown, when they're in a situation that is unpredictable and requires that creative, in-the-moment thinking that will hopefully save lives and keep our students safe. So that is something that we're taking a really close look at. I don't know, Mike, if you want to briefly speak to that, or if I addressed it in enough depth at this point.
I think you did an excellent job with it, and it is an enhanced version of what we do now. We're constantly going to training. The police department constantly goes to training to update and stay up to date on all the new trends and procedures that we do for different things. And I, in turn, relate that back to the district and discuss it with the safety committee and faculty members and principals, in fact. So this training coming up, I think, is going to be important. It's new, and it's the latest thing that's out there. And again, it's an enhanced version of what we do. Things evolve, and I think it's a good thing. And we're going to have a lot of. I have over 20 people are going from all over. So I think it will address some of the things that you talked about, Rich.
And Rich, if you want to know more, or if anyone else wants to know more, the acronym is ALICE, A-L-I-C-E, and there's information obviously available on the web, but again, we're going to a training coming up here, so thank you. Great questions and feedback. Thank you. Ma'am.
Good evening. I imagine there are a number of safety measures that you would like to implement that are at the most cost prohibitive, and also very cheap, easy implements that you can put in, like the buzzer systems on the door. Mm-hmm. That being said, I have a couple of things I wanted to ask about specifically, and I don't know that you'll be able to give me a direct answer on them because they may be something that you're still considering, but I just wanted to put it out there. Mm-hmm. As had been mentioned already about bus procedure, I wondered if, in addition to all of the things you're looking at within the school and around the school, if bus procedure is something that you also will be evaluating with respect to safety measures. Second, I wanted to know, with regard to the concept of man trap in the front main entryway, where you have a double door system. In schools where that's probably not going to work well due to a design flaw that wasn't a flaw 30 years ago, are you considering measures to be able to lock out the hallways or corridors from the main entranceway so that those areas remain secure during the school day?
Let me stop you just so that we can address those first two questions, and then if you have others, we can look at those. In terms of bus procedures, again, that is something, as Lori described, that we do look at on a regular basis, and we have a number of measures in place already. Many of our students walk or are driven to school, but it's something that we have to take a continual close look at. In terms of locking out access to hallways. One of the things that is important to us, and I mentioned it briefly, but it's important to us that while we maintain a safe and secure school environment, we're also welcoming for our community and for our students. And so there's a balancing act there that we need to pay attention to. We never want to create a system where it is too difficult for a student to get to the front office to access the support that they might need there for whatever reason. We certainly don't want to create a system that would lock a student out from getting back to the main hallway if need be. So as we have explored those options with our buildings and grounds staff as well as with the architect, there are a number of different considerations that we have to look at, and you're right. In some of our schools, it's really, really easy to accomplish it, and in other schools, it will take some reconfiguring of that front door space. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. We want to be very careful never to create a situation, though, where a student has to go outside of a secure part of the building in order to access the front office. Because there's so many different reasons why students access the front office, and so it's a balancing act.
Absolutely. We had a hurricane in Florida where we had to rebuild the school system, and that was the setup that they established in the new building, was that you had locked hallways on each side, and the office was accessible from the outside, but during the day they stayed locked. And if a student had to go to the nurse or what have you, when they were finished, they would be buzzed back into those hallway corridors to be able to limit access from anyone coming in as a visitor, but certainly make access available to students through a buzzing system through the front office. I have just one more thing. I saw that on the list you had mentioned something about a key emergency in each classroom, and I wondered if, in considering all of these other measures, if that too is something that was being looked at, because it is good to have that in each and every room. Would panic buttons or something something quicker, be something that you might consider?
Panic buttons are certainly something that we are looking at in conjunction with the burglar and security alarm system upgrades. Those won't be installed in each and every classroom, though. Each and every classroom at this point has a phone that does have direct access to 911, and there's some enhanced features to that when they call 911 that the system alerts the person answering the phone. I'm sorry, I don't know the technical name for that person. The person answering the phone. What did you say?
Village Operations Center.
The Village Operations Center, what part of the building that person is calling from. So there are some of those features already in place within our buildings.
That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think if I may, the three individuals who are standing here, we'll take your comments and feedback and questions, and then we will adjourn for the evening. And if anybody else has questions or comments, we certainly would welcome you to come up as well. So thank you.
Hi, I'm a parent of a Bel Air student, and I love our open atmosphere at that school, but at the same time, in light of Newtown, I started to really rethink what happens during the lockdown procedures at Bel Air and El Sierra, which is a similar school situation. If you could elaborate a little bit on that. Where do those kids go to be safe because there is no classroom door to lock?
I don't know, Mike, if you... there are some enhancements, actually some enhancements that were just done more recently prior to this school year starting that allow for there to be secure facilities for students to go to in the event of a lockdown procedure.
Are you talking like the bathrooms and the janitor closets and the gym?
Not bathrooms where they can't get out. I like to have, I don't want to go into great detail about it, but we have thought about your concern because it is wide open, and we have addressed those issues because it's unique to those two buildings. And we've struggled with it and worked with Rick and Laura, everybody, and we've come up with a way to keep them safe. And in fact, it may mean evacuation. But I don't want to go into great detail about it, but we're not going to leave them right in the middle, and we're not going to put them in a room that they can't get out of. That's a genuine concern. I mean, it's a good question, and it's a struggle. But we've worked with what I think is a good plan to keep them as safe as possible at this point.
Okay. Thank you. And I did have one more question, and this has to do with the whole stranger danger in our community with, people approaching children, people driving SUVs approaching a child, recently, and happens unfortunately more and more often, it seems like. And I know that the police are always vigilant and out on patrol. I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit. Are patrols increased every day, when schools are typically kids are coming into school and leaving school, or how does that exactly work? That's a great question.
No, that's a great question to situations we're dealing with more and more often, as you said. Part of our response to any of those calls is a definite increase in patrol to that specific school. But as the chief said earlier in the beginning, we are always putting extra patrols at the schools. But when we do have a situation like that, the descriptions go out to our officers. We share the information with the school and the principals, and we make sure that the public's notified through either a press release or something, communication to the school. But definitely we pick up the extra patrols. Our officers are aware of it. Our roll calls where the officers begin their shift, it's the topic to start the shift, and it continues until any information is gathered from the public, because that's what we're looking for with that. It's not only our officers being on a heightened alert and patrol in that neighborhood, but also gathering it from the students and also the parents to help us find out who that person was.
I think the community, the police and the school district do a great job getting that information out there. We can have all those alerts, which are great, so we can, say, hey, we need to be extra careful these days. But I was just wondering, incident happens at one school, well, that person is just going to go to another school tomorrow because they know you're going to be watching that school.
And we do consider that, and that's what I mean. We do put an emphasis on the schools all the time, and then it upticks a little bit as we go to all the other schools, including the high schools.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim, Barcelona. I have a couple of questions. My first is actually a request. If you could add to your list, and it may already be on there, just not listed, a credential exchange policy. So as the Christmas holiday approached, we had a lot of discussions amongst family and friends as to the policies and securities and safety that each of the schools have. And one of the things that became apparent is a lot of them require a driver's license exchange or some type of an ID exchange, even though you might know the people, so that they know when somebody is in their building and when somebody has left the building, because you're not going to leave without your driver's license. So that's one thing that you might, I don't know if that's something being considered already. It's a pain for the people that are entering the building and probably for the offices, right? But at the same time, it's probably a step up in IDs and badge issuing and knowing who's in and out of the school. My bigger concern right now is I've been to 2 other meetings and I've seen this list a couple of times, and I realize that it's going to take time, and we did have some immediate implementations. But I'm still struggling with decisions, the cost benefit of the decisions, and how we're going to fund it. And I think prior to the December event, we were talking about ways we're going to spend our money as a community on our school districts. That changed a little bit when that event happened in December. And so what might have been a priority in November related to expansions and related to investing in some of the infrastructure might not be the same prioritization. So I think as we go forward as a community, I think we need to look at what are the things we're really looking to do? What are they really going to cost us? Because I think it's important that we're looking at all of our 13 schools getting benefit from the money that we're spending. And I would like to see things happen this summer. And if Phase 2 means when the municipal bond gets issued, that's probably not going to be this summer. So if that Phase 2 item might be something that's a higher priority to some of the parents, I think we should have a say in that also as we move forward. I'm not saying that everything on here has to be implemented, but I'm going to ask you, have you talked to the DuPage Regional Superintendent? Because in talking to some of our other bordering communities that are part of District 50, or part of DuPage County, they have a lot of these things already in place. And as a parent of District 58, I think for a minimum, we should expect that our schools are equal to the schools in Hinsdale, Westmont, Clarendon Hills, all the other schools, because if not, we're a target. I don't think we have to go to the extreme, but I think we have to make sure that we're on the same level playing field. So as we go through this, I've got to believe there's been surveys done internally between the, DuPage County to know what each school has. So as we set our prioritization list, we should be at a minimum around what all the schools are in our district.
Yeah, absolutely. In answer to your question, have we met with the ROE? We do, and we meet with them regularly. In fact, the training that we were at today it was at the ROE, and it included Darlene and many other regional representatives. So we do meet with them regularly. In fact, Rick and Ken recently were at a meeting of all of the regional buildings and grounds personnel where they were going over all of the recommended practices that needed to be in place in school districts throughout our region. And each and every one of those, with the exception of the locked front door, was already in place in our district. And quite frankly, in some of the other districts, they weren't in place or weren't as vigilantly adhered to. So we do. That exchange happens very regularly. In answer to your question about some of those facility improvements that we've been talking about really all year and since last year, some of the things that are on our list right now that we're considering were under consideration before as well. They just weren't talked about as much because people, quite frankly, weren't really that interested in hearing about security or burglar alarm upgrades at the time. With that being said, the life safety amendments that will be presented to the board, which allows us to access some of the funds that will help us to pay for some of the improvements that we've discussed, that will be presented to the board on Monday evening, and they approve that. Then it goes to the state, they approve it, and that allows us to start accessing those funds so that we can make some of those improvements in our buildings, including those things that are eligible for the improvements, which it does include the carpeting and the asphalt, but it also includes many of the security upgrades that we've talked about today. The phase 2 element is in some of our schools, that second threshold door isn't eligible for under those funds, and quite frankly just isn't as easy to accomplish structurally. So that those will take a little bit more planning. But the phase 1 portion that we are hoping to accomplish this summer with approval of all those different agencies and access to those funds is those improvements to the front door, the camera, the swipe card system, the security and burglar alarm system. All of those things that you saw listed are the things that we're hoping to accomplish and have in place prior to the start of the next
So under consideration listing here is everything that you're looking to do in the summer? With the exception of some of the double secure vestibules?
Yes, the front door entrances with doorbells, cameras, with direct feed to the police department, intercom, remote locking systems. The second set of locking interior doors is the thing that in some of our schools is much more difficult to accomplish. But the swipe card systems, the burglar alarm upgrades, and then examining some of those other issues that need to just continually be reviewed. All of those are happening.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is that the board meeting will be the next discussion point where we could voice our opinion if we think that maybe this has a higher priority than something else that's been budgeted for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And that happens Monday night.
Okay, thank you.
Well, all my questions have been answered as I'm standing here.
Thank you.
But I will take this moment to comment and say that even despite what happened in Connecticut, I feel completely safe with my kids. The front door being locked is definitely a bonus. The staff and administration, they know the families. We've had a lockdown since my kids have been in the school. The police handled it amazingly. The staff handled it amazingly, and that was like my first time with anything like that. And the doors were not locked at the time, and our kids were safe. I do feel safe, thanks in part to the administration and the staff that's at the school. Sorry, police, I don't know, you're really not that much into it. Behind the scenes, maybe, but the staff and the administration. So in talking about all these things, I think that my biggest fear is that, like Mrs. Barcelona said, is that the surrounding areas do seem to have more or better security in place. You're not going to be able to look at and plan for everything and all the abnormalities that the other gentleman said. Having that teacher and staff knowing the families, it's going to be, I can't picture having some stranger just randomly walking in and doing this. That's not what we've seen, except for the Arkansas thing. So I have full confidence in the staff and in the administration and in the police to handle those situations. Let's see, my other questions were already answered. I do have one little pet peeve to my school. The pickup and drop off, as you talk about safety, is awful, and we are not the only school. Okay, I've talked to a lot of other schools. It's not safe. If you are in that line, because you can't drop your kids off until a certain time, okay, because they're not watched, they're not supervised. Right. So if you wait to that certain time, at this particular school, and I'm not naming names, the line goes halfway down the block. By the time you actually get to the door, the kids are tardy, and they've lost educational time. The principal has done amazing things to try to tell people what to do. I have a kindergartner. I will not just go through the drop-off line. I'm an at-home mom. I will park, get out and walk her to the door and give her my kiss. I'm not going to hold up the line to do that in front of the school where everybody's honking to get in. Yeah. For this year, she's little. I will be walking her and giving her a kiss goodbye. As she gets older, probably not so much. But I don't know if you guys looked at these drop-off and pick-up procedures, because I know we're not the only school, and I'm telling you, even if parents are doing what the principal is asking them to do, which not everybody does anyway, including me, it's not safe. Kids are crossing in the middle of the street. Today, there was a police officer there, I don't know who that was, sitting in a lot facing the school, probably just monitoring, whatever. Well, some car comes flying by going in the wrong way where it clearly says exit. By the police, so I mean, they're not even stopping because a police officer is sitting right there. So have you looked at anything like to monitor those traffic flow patterns or something? Because the principal's done all she can do.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can say confidently that is looked at repeatedly throughout the school year. And the principals are very actively involved in that. And you will see from time to time as a parent, I know I see it, where those procedures are changed to try and make improvements. It's a challenge. To say the least, it's a challenge. Our schools weren't designed to have so many cars coming through the front of them at the beginning of school. So it is something that is continuously reviewed, and we do have the benefit of partnering with the village to help us to make improvements there in traffic patterns and where people park and where people stop and all of those other things. While we're on the subject, I will put a plug in for families walking their children to school. There are so many great advantages of that, including reducing the traffic. And obviously that gets worse during this cold, snowy weather time, but there are so many health benefits of walking your child to school.
No, and I have walked many
traffic
times. In all seriousness, I have walked many, but I do know that the principal and the staff is knowing she's doing whatever she can. And then you have people like me that put their foot down and say, I am not going through first of all, it would take my 3 kids like an hour to get out of the car with their stuff dropping everywhere. But I'm not in a hurry. I don't need to do that. So for the short time that I have them, I am going to be parking and getting out. And I know that that's a huge pet peeve to some, because I'm kind of breaking the rules, and there isn't even a good place to park to do this, and it's just kids are walking, parents don't pay attention, they're zooming past the line, and it's dangerous.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if anybody else wants to comment about traffic patterns, but okay.
No, because it's probably just as aggravating for you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight. All right, last comment or question.
Quick question.
Thanks for being here.
I have 3 boys here. I've been here in Downers Grove for about 18 years. I have a boy in Lincoln Center, a boy in El Sierra, and a future student. One thing you've been hearing about in the news lately, and you guys are all doing a great job also. One thing you hear in the news lately is talking about arming someone at schools. And it's not something I'm for or necessarily against, something that we could all consider. Is that something that you guys are considering? Is that something that has been discussed? And if so, do us parents have obviously any say in that, and I'm assuming there would be meetings against that?
Yeah. It's something that's been discussed. It's not something we're considering at this point.
Okay, good. Thank you.
If I could just add a comment on that. September 17th, 1993, we actually had a child that was shot and killed in Downers Grove at Downers Grove South High School. And when that issue has been brought up to me, we had multiple officers that were actually at that high school at a football game. And if there's any takeaways that I would like to really put a plug in for tonight is talking to your children about safety and sharing what to do in circumstances if you notice somebody's making a threat or has a gun at a football game or in school. Because that incident actually, despite you had armed police officers all over that campus, and somebody was still shot and killed. So, I know there's a lot of discussion in the media about that, but I think talking to your children, letting them know to come to an adult, a responsible adult, and what to do in difficult circumstances, because that incident, a number of people knew that boy had a gun at the football game, and nobody said anything. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you. All right, I again want to thank you all for being here and thank the panel for taking time out from your busy schedules in the evening to be here to present this information and to answer the questions that have been presented here tonight. Thank you very much. If your friends didn't get to come tonight, please encourage them to watch the video online. I appreciate your ongoing support. Thank you.